Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of a new podcast called The Mind Blown Zone, featuring me, Matt, and my co host, Brad. How are you, Brad?
Never better. Yourself, Matt?
Also, very well. We've been recently inspired to share what we know with the world, and this is the introduction to that sharing. We want to start off by telling you what this podcast is about. It is defined as a bridge to self discovery. And I'm going to kick it right over to Brad to help us understand what that means.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's a big idea, and how do I frame this in a way that's understandable? Is in effect, essentially, we've forgotten who we are, and that is the cause of our struggles, our problems, our worries, our fears, our judgments, and everything else that makes life miserable for people. And the cause of this is that we've been taught many things that simply are not true, but they stand as truths in the mass consciousness. And the bridge aspect of this is that until somebody's willing to contemplate, entertain, consider these many falsehoods and deceptions that stand as truths today, there's no forward movement possible for them. It's almost like the full cup, empty cup analogy, right? Where if you're all full of many false, deceptive ideas and beliefs, you don't have room for corrections or new ones inside of those slots. You have to be willing to start to release some of those to let in some new information. So that's kind of the impetus behind this. These beliefs have really crystallized in humanity, and I would go so far as to say that many spells have been cast on us, and so people won't even start to entertain some of these. These are people that are just unreachable, and what we're hoping is this podcast will find people that are curious and interested in hearing what we're talking about, and all the podcasts that follow. But so the bridge is, first, let's break down some of the lies, and then second, let's point at in the direction of the truths of self-discovery.
Right.
So,
and we've kind of identified two major topics that seem to be the major bridges to higher truths about self-discovery. We've identified this topic that you might call conspiracy realities, where people are kind of waking up and going, hey, didn't the government say one thing but do another?
Right.
And hey, wait, is the media lying to us? Or wait, are they using science to tell us stuff that's not true? Right? Like people kind of just like beginning to notice that the institutions and the truths that they present don't really seem to be consistent with reality, and perhaps they're even being used against us, right? So that, when someone comes into that realm, that's can kind of be a beginning to self-discovery. And the other topic that we identified is health, right? So people go for years, even decades, with health issues, pains, organ problems, things like cancer, all sorts of things, right? There's these chronic conditions, and they try everything that the medical establishment suggests to them, but nothing works. And they finally reach a point where they're like, well, I've tried absolutely everything that the medical establishment has recommended to me, and I'm not getting better. So maybe there's something else out there. And when they finally open up to looking into esoteric sources, that also begins this journey to self-discovery.
Perfectly
Brad?
said. That's absolutely right. And in truth, right? Another important part of why the health is so important is that you can't even begin to venture off into the seeking of greater truths like self-discovery if you have poor health, right? Because that's that poor health so dominates your consciousness, and it's such a takes away so much life force from you that until the health issues are resolved, the self-discovery mission is very difficult. So, two really good points to have here. And did you mention conspiracy realities? I don't know if you breezed
Oh
right
yeah.
over that. Okay.
Do you want to
Yeah.
add more on that?
Right. No, I was just going to add to it. Just say that that's the way I've looked at it for years. I've come to think of myself as a conspiracy therapist, actually, in recent times. And the fact is that they're everywhere. And to break that CIA programming of, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. I shouldn't listen to a word he has to say. Right. That's one of these examples of spells that I mentioned earlier. Right. And just the thought of somebody suggesting a conspiracy theory, there's a spell cast on humanity that means automatically disregard what that person has to say.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to get past that spell, just as an example.
Right. And we kind of imagine that the listeners that we're mostly going to attract are in the process of breaking the spell, or have even broken it quite significantly. And that most are here because they're actually questioning the establishment narrative, whether they're questioning the legal narrative, the medical narrative, the academia narrative, the government narrative, or just the media political narrative. They're going, hey, wait, maybe reality isn't as it seems. So we want to help you go further with that. And, we want to help you figure out a whole bunch of erroneous beliefs that have been pushed into our head over decades, even centuries, even millennia, and help you to basically discard these beliefs. And as you discard those beliefs, you're going to pave the way to self-discovery.
That's right. And just to add something here, as time proceeds, there's going to be more suffering and struggle for the people who aren't on this path to self-discovery. Mm-hmm. As the institutions break down, as the mainstream narratives breaking down, it's going to hold on to those things is really going to just cause a life of misery, because they're simply not true. And part of what's happening right now, as we speak, is those are being shattered, and it's just slowly seeping into public consciousness. Right. So there's just now's the time. These types of subjects were things 10, 20, 30 years ago where you couldn't talk about them because you knew you were going to be ridiculed, or you knew you'd be ousted from your favorite group of friends or whatever, relatives, if you talked about these things. So we were just silent most of the time about these. But you can't be silent about them any longer if you want to feel great and lead a peaceful, joyful, successful life. Put simply.
Well, we like to say that permission has been granted for humanity to receive the truth.
There you go.
And I don't just mean the truth from Matt and Brad. I mean, like, it is time for humanity to discard that which is not true and realize what is true.
100%. The chains are off.
Brad, do you think you might want to talk a little bit more on this self-discovery idea and talk about the benefits of moving toward that, by way of this podcast?
Yeah, and I touched on that a second ago, but really what happens is a clarity that you've never had before as you peel away these false beliefs. Another nice word for these ideas is veils, right? They're veiling clarity for you. And it's difficult to break away from them when everybody around you believes them. We understand that, and that's one of the big challenges we have right now with everybody. We've written a whole course on getting out of that. But clarity comes, and perhaps more importantly, a sense of peace, harmony, bliss, whatever word works best for somebody. It starts to settle in as your natural state of beingness, even amidst chaos and confusion around you, right? And it's kind of a magical thing that happens without much effort, really, on your part, other than, of course, recognizing the lies and deceptions. That's the effort you have to put forward And when you get past those, these types of things come through. So we do our best to try to synthesize some of these concepts and ideas in our podcast. Hopefully, we won't go too deep into the weeds, but realizing what lasting happiness is all about is really the goal, and it's the human condition. Okay, everybody's, no matter what they're doing, from moment to moment, everybody's seeking some form of happiness, even if you go and work a job that you don't really like, which a lot of people are doing. They do it because they get money so that they can go do the things that make them happy with their money, right? But they find, as you grow older, you find out that even the things you thought were going to make you happy, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you realize that the joy and happiness that came when you achieved or purchased or did the thing that you thought would make you happy, it doesn't last, right? So this self-discovery process brings lasting happiness. And I would go so far as to say this is our natural state when we have achieved self-discovery. We're naturally happy all the time, regardless of the conditions that surround us. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Mm-hmm. And I suppose I could provide the opposite, the losses. If you don't open up to this path to self-discovery, either from us or from anywhere else, it's just that life becomes such a struggle eventually. This idea of self-discovery has really been repressed, and it's like we're living without that journey. And without that journey, life just becomes such a burnout misery kind of thing, just purposeless. It's just everything's a strain. Just relationships are a strain, finances are a strain, your health becomes strained. And it's just not a place to be. It seems to only get worse. And it seems that you just have to eventually reach a point where you call it rock bottom, and you're like, oh, all this stuff that society's just been forcing on me, this is just nonsense. And you just drop it and look somewhere else. But, you don't have to go all the way to burnout. You don't have to go all the way to rock bottom. You can just realize that we've been fed a whole bunch of deception and just start moving toward self-discovery whenever you like. You're free to do it.
Right. Yeah. I just would like to add to this, and I'll go so far as to say, is that life, whatever we want to define that as, but it's a guaranteed that you're going to bump into these struggles and these challenges and these obstacles because you're on the wrong path, because you're pointed in the wrong direction. And by wrong, I mean what society has taught us is right. This is inevitable. The finding of the self-discovery process is why we're here. And if you're not tuned and pointed at it, then life is going to bring you struggles, obstacles, chaos at certain, at points, right? It's unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is happening like never before today. It's ramped up considerably, and it's going to continue to ramp up.
Yeah, I think the things are about exponential right now.
Yeah, and I think we haven't seen anything yet. We'll see. I don't know for sure, but I think it's going to continue to get more loud.
I wouldn't be surprised. Well, let's move into the story of the podcast, because it really informs what's going on here. I'll just start off with how Brad and I met. We were just on a forum, just exchanging ideas about health. My interest in health came from the fact that for, I would say 12 years, from 18 to 30, I just had this like chronic, terrible fibromyalgia and intense back pain and sciatica. And it was, awful. So I was seeing all these doctors, massage therapists, chiropractors, all the people you go and see, right? Radiologists, osteopaths, just again and again and again. and I just never made any progress, right? And it was only when I got introduced to more esoteric ideas. I met two people called Era Westerberg and Egwin Ertel, and they introduced me to ideas like body consciousness and integrating um, emotional approaches and mental approaches into exercises, that I began to make progress, right? And based on the ideas that I learned from them and my own discoveries, I put together a course on back pain. It's called the Back Pain Miracle. I've had customers in over 50 countries, got tons of testimonials. People have had chronic pain for 50 or 30 or 50 years, and suddenly like, whoa, this is the first thing that works, So I was out on forums exchanging my ideas, and Brad was there too. I met him. And Brad, do you just want to mention about what you were doing on a forum, exchanging health ideas, your interest in that?
Yeah, just it was just topics were coming up. I mean, this was in the heat and hype of COVID, and I had discovered some things that not many people had yet discovered there. And really, COVID was a blessing in disguise for me personally, in that I just started to question some very big topics and dive down these rabbit holes. And what I found is quite a surprise to everybody I've ever mentioned it to. And
Big time.
And while I was studying that, I was also learning about what I'm just going to call for today. I'm going to call it mind-induced disease. It's also a subject that most people aren't willing to hear or ready to hear, and hopefully we can gently introduce that in future podcasts. As hopefully as our listeners, prod us to do, hopefully. But that was it. And I think you just had some questions about what I was saying about different kinds of diseases, and that one thing led to another. And next thing you know, we were talking directly.
Right. Because I kind of had this idea directly just about pain. But then I saw that what I was looking at was just like a little, one piece of the puzzle, really. And, the way Brad put it was in a much more generalized way that addressed all of health. And I was like, whoa, this is like a much more expanded, generalized, but still completely accurate explanation of health. And I was like, whoa, this is incredible. I just started exchanging a few messages with Brad, and then I was like, yo, man, want to chat on Zoom sometime?
Hey,
I don't know if you
yeah.
saw that one coming, but we agreed. And, we started to, I think we hit it off right off the bat. And, we saw that we were both these people who had rejected these mainstream ideas. We'd both come to the conclusion on a wide variety of subjects that our so-called experts, like medical establishment experts, have been profoundly miseducated, and not just medical experts, but experts in all realms, be it legal or political or really anything. So we had our own topics, individual topics that we brought to the table. Some we had shared knowledge on, and well, we just thought that we made, I suppose, a good team. And we just started talking like, wouldn't it be cool to share these with more people? Maybe both of us had individually wanted to do that, but we thought that if we got together, it'd be a great synthesis that would be 1+1, not making two but making 10 or 11, as they say.
Nice.
And we thought, yeah, let's do a podcast, put together some courses, trainings. If you look around on our site, you'll definitely find courses from us. We'll talk more about those at the end. We don't want to tell you about those right now. And Brad, maybe you want to say a little bit about what we thought this podcast would bring, that was kind of just why there was nothing else like this at the time, being right now.
So the reason I agreed to do this is that I listen to a lot of different podcasts out there, and they all fit into what I'm going to call just a category that would attract listeners. Like, really doesn't matter what category, but they all seem to fit into these well-defined, long-standing, traditional categories. And I've been looking for years for someone who thinks a little bit more like me and has a little bit more, open. I'll say open to a wider audience, rather than this select audience. Like if I wanted to make a popular podcast today, I could say, all right, well, most people think like this. So all I got to do is talk about what most people think. And maybe I make a podcast on movie reviews or, mainstream television programs or popular musicians, right? You're going to get tons of people following, but there's a million people podcasting about those ideas. And in the conspiracy or self discovery realm, I think that most people are either one or the other. There's a bit of a blend, a few people out there that are blending the two. I just felt like I have done enough research, studying and learning over the past 20 odd years to where I kind of bring to the table a blend of both. And hopefully our listeners will gain a lot of value and appreciate that experience. There's a universal law at work, big idea here, but it's like when you learn something, it's really powerful and truthful. The first thing you want to do is run out your door and tell everybody about it. It's like natural. And if you hold it in, it becomes painful.
Yeah.
Right.
I can agree with that.
Now, the fact that most people don't want to hear about it is, the most difficult part about it is I just wish I could tell everybody the things that I know, but they're not wanting to or ready to hear these things. And so this is a great outlet for this podcast. And, maybe, who knows who will find us, today versus who will find us, 2, 5 years, 10 years down the road. But when they're ready, they'll find this, and this will be kind of a breath of fresh air for those people that are ready to hear these things. So what we're not interested in doing is preaching to the choir. So, we're happy to, have people that are thinking like we're thinking on the program, but we're not out to, just reiterate the things we all agree on and make it about that. So,
yeah, we're not trying to resonate with our audience's emotions and have your beliefs coming out of our mouths so that you can go, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's a big idea, by the way. I'll probably say this 1,000 times to come, but the last thing we want you to do is listen to our podcast and believe what we say. This is what's got us into this mess in the first place, is that we listened to our experts and authorities and we believed what they said without checking up on them and seeing if they know what they're talking about and if they're really telling the truth or not. So we encourage people to check our work and do their own research with an open mind. So take what we have to say in future podcasts and put it in, I like to say, file it in the I'm not sure filing cabinet, right? Not in the I believe it or I don't believe it filing cabinet. And that'll really open doors for people.
Right. I guess one of the final things to say on the story of the podcast is the name.
Right.
You as a listener are going to find out that Brad is going to tell you things that you're going to be like, whoa. Like you're not going to be able to sleep at night, like just one night while you process it, like Brad would tell me things. I was like, you're blowing my mind, man. So, we toyed with a few names, but eventually we were like, what if we called it the mind blown zone? We just think it's a cool thing. Like what's cooler than getting your mind blown, Someone when you really get some information that just makes you go, whoa, that's an epiphany, right?
Right.
So we hope to blow your minds in a good way.
That's right. It's just to be clear, what we want to do is we want to blow out these false beliefs, deceptions, lies, and half truths. That's our goal.
Yeah, double meaning.
Blow those out of there and then make your mind ripe for greater truths, which is the bridge to self-discovery and lasting happiness.
So we want to tell you a couple of things about who we are and how we think. Makes us kind of unique. It's going to give you a really unique listening experience to most, everything else out there, in my opinion. So we're going to throw a few concepts at you here. Anti-credibility, right? So we are the opposite of standard establishment experts, right? The way the world is working right now is there are experts, right? And the more of an expert you are and the more credibility you have, the more people are willing to go, well, I really tend to believe that. They do have a lot of credentials and a university degree, and they've been on many important shows. So, I really think that's probably true, what he's saying. But we've identified this thing called outsourcing one's intellectual integrity or one's intellectual sovereignty. Kind of use both of those phrases, as mentioned in Nathaniel Brandon's book on self-esteem. And people just have decided to stop thinking for themselves now. And as long as they can, defer their opinions to experts, they're okay. It's likely to be correct because those people are experts. But that's not us. We're not going to tell you that we have any sort of degree. I've got a fancy degree, but I won't even tell you what it is. We do not want you to believe what we're saying based on any credibility. We want you to know what is true by hearing us say it as a suggestion and then go and checking that out with reality and independently confirming for yourself whether it's true or not. Do you have anything to add on that, Brett?
No, that's perfect. That is the idea.
How about you take on the anti-establishment idea then?
Well, this is what I was called even as a teenager, on multiple occasions from teachers. I started in middle school, and I got kicked out of Sunday school, and had some brushes with teachers, and it isn't people. This is another thing where people put this in as some menace to society or some drag that's isn't good for the neighborhood or whatever. But what I mean by this is that I have been questioning the establishment all my life, never to the degree that I have recently, say in the past 5 years. And there's no subject that I won't look into now and plumb the depths of. And obviously what you and I came together with is the scientific consensus. And didn't take long, maybe a year, to discover that there isn't much science going on in the scientific consensus. In fact, it's shockingly devoid of science.
Settled science.
It's all been settled by some people who don't have your best interest in mind. And so that's what I'd say about the anti-establishment bit, is that it's not, I hate them, I don't, or I want to upend, culture. It's just that I now see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. And I want as many people to find out about it as I can, because it'll be better for all of us when they do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we already mentioned this a little bit already, but I think it's just important to say it again. We're not giving you beliefs. It's probably important to say it 20 times, and that's probably how many times we'll say it all up, but we're really not like imparting on you beliefs. We want beliefs to basically end, because beliefs, you don't know whether they're true or not. But I think most people are finding out that they have been believing lies, right? We used to believe, like when I was young, I believed that the government was like looking out for me and had my best interest in mind. And I believed that the media told me what was going on in the world. And I believed that financial institutions are trying to help me get wealthy. Okay. I believe that the legal system is there to stick up for my rights. Okay. And it was that belief that got me into a lot of trouble. Got me into a lot of deception and just living irrationally, I would say. So we want to shift the whole world from believing to knowing, to thinking objectively, to thinking independently, to observing reality, to really using high level logic to know whether something's true or not, and to understand, what something means or what something is or what's going on in a particular circumstance. You want to add to that, Brett?
Yeah, I think we'll do a whole podcast on that word alone. Not gonna talk about it today, but think about it. A belief isn't true or false; it's a belief. That's why we have a word for it. So we'll pick apart that one in greater detail in the future, sure. And
Well, you take on this two-sided experts one.
Yeah,
that's your baby.
right into this. This is my little baby here. I call it the two-sided expert problem. or really it's the one-sided expert problem, and that is this. Let's see if I can explain this briefly. How many times have we heard this? 9 out of 10 experts agree if you use Acme toothpaste, you'll prevent cavities, or there's a million different 9 out of 10 experts agree stories we've heard out there. Matt and I are interested in hearing from that one holdout expert. Now, I want to know what the one guy who didn't agree has to say. And so those are the types of people that we seek out. Now, they're not always right. I may go look at that one expert and go, yeah, I don't think that guy's got it right. But oftentimes, as it turns out, it appears to be that this guy actually is right. And this is what our current experts and authorities are not doing. Here's the problem. Somebody, comes up with this platitude or this belief system that we're supposed to agree on and believe in. And they find comfort in the fact that all their peers, with the credentials and the peer review and everything, agree with them. Well, that's got to be because there's all these people that agree with it. But there's other people that don't get any mainstream coverage who, really lose their funding, lose their grants, lose their reputation, their jobs, their livelihoods, because they go against this mainstream 9 out of 10 experts agreement. And these are the people that we all need to be curious about and interested in. And that's what a lot of Matt and I have done in studying. So now the problem with this main group of experts, right, the dominant majority, is if or when they hear about the experts who don't agree with them, rather than go and learn and listen to the experts that disagree with them, they go to their own gang of guys that agree with them and hear the negative aspects of the opposing argument. They don't go and learn the opposing argument. And so all they ever hear is all the positives of their side of the story and all the negatives of the opposing side of the story. They don't take the time to actually think for themselves and hear out and learn the opposing side of the story. And this is perhaps the greatest problem we have right now, is blind belief in experts. We'll talk about that, I think, in our next podcast. Anyway, Matt and I are two-sided experts, so we don't accept the majority opinion and we don't accept the minority opinion. We learn them both. And frankly, it's a little bit like, like college debate club. Have you heard of that, where you take a subject and you have to come into the, the day of the debate and you have to be prepared to argue either side of the debate. Yeah, right. You don't know which side you're going to have to argue. So you got to learn both sides.
And yeah, I forgot about that. That was fun. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. So this is like what we do, is we learn both sides before we put forth an opinion. And I think that's what's missing in this world in big ways. So that's the two-sided expert idea.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that you're probably seeing that this is a fairly unique kind of podcast. We intend to serve a completely new category of people, like a unmet need for information, because we've investigated many topics, and we're the kind of people who like to synthesize information, right? So we've synthesized a ton of ideas that are already accepted and a ton of alternative ideas that kind of break the back of the establishment consensus. And we really feel like we're able to bring the entire viewpoint from both sides of the table into a synthesis and offer it to you, so you can see what everyone's thinking about this and figure out what's true, rather than just be dictated to by just one side of the table. Brad?
Precisely. That's it. I mean, there's nothing I can add to that. This is what we do and all we're going to do. I'm just throwing in an idea that just came to my head, but a lot of these podcasts are just responding to current events, and that's what they do every week. They wait, they look at the news cycle, they go, okay, this is the latest thing to talk about, and they try to dissect it or say, here's what's wrong with it. I'm not saying we aren't going to do that, but that's not what's driving this podcast. We want to get to the core beliefs that are false, pick them apart, and demonstrate why they're wrong and why they're, frankly, causing problems for anybody who believes them.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that kind of brings us to the crux of, I would say, this episode, which we can introduce with our claim is that things are not as they seem, and that establishment institutions are fundamentally deceptive. So, what we're going to do right here is we're going to go through a few of the main institutions that we turn to guide our lives and tell us what's true: academia, media, law, health, government. And we're going to make a few statements on each of these that just provides our, I suppose, our perspective, just our brief perspective on each of these. So, why don't you go for it, Brad? Why don't you do academia for us?
Sure. And just to be clear, what Matt just said is what I call a big idea, like a really, really, really big idea, that things aren't as they seem, and that's deliberate. So take that in with a full breath, and just let it percolate there. It's a tremendous idea. But as far as academia goes, I think this is the basis of how we get deceived, and this is something I didn't arrive at until probably 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't realize just how deep and bad it was. Now, obviously, and this is where if I'm only having a 2-minute conversation with you in passing, you're going to think I'm crazy for saying something like this, because obviously we all need to learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic, and some of these basic tools we need to, live a reasonably productive life. So I'm not talking about the 3 R's, as they say, but it is let's call it the softer sciences, the softer elements of the education that begin to veer us off course, and it starts in kindergarten. So it isn't like, wow, it kicks off in 10th grade science class, where it starts in the beginning. And perhaps more importantly, some of you may have heard of this idea. We're not going to go into any detail here, but that our education system in the West is modeled off of the Prussian military education process, which the fundamental goal was to educate people to be compliant soldiers in the Prussian army, and that model is being used today. So even more than the information that gets stuffed into the heads of our kids, it's the behavior, the attitude that is being engendered into the minds of the students. And that's really, I'm the teacher, I'm the authority, I'm the boss. Don't question me. Follow what I say. And if you disagree, you're going to be in trouble or you're going to get bad grades. And that gets inculcated into us from the very beginning. So that's the academia idea. How about your favorite, Matt, media?
Oh, the media. Well, even though I'll talk about it, I'll lead off with a quote that you put down that I'd also heard. The William Casey, was he the head of the CIA at one point? Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so the quote is, we'll know our mission is complete when everything Americans believe is false. So
it's a gut punch.
It comes right in, we're not trying to say, hey, believe this about the CIA. I'm not trying to say that. But I am telling you that it's a fact that this guy said that. So you may make of that what you will. And we believe that it's truthful. And if it makes you uncomfortable, we don't want you to believe it or disbelieve it. We just want you to contemplate whether it's true. And that means we want you to go and look at, well, what is the CIA? What is their mission? Does it seem like their intention is to make Americans believe that which is false or not? But I do suggest you open to the possibility that it's true. You want to add something on that, Brett?
Yeah, just quickly, just to say that, in that sentence, there's that word everything. And this is what throws people off, right? Because, of course, they can't lie to us about what's obvious and what we can easily verify for ourselves. And most importantly, what wouldn't give them any power, money, or advantage over us, right? So they're not going to lie to us about the fact that the grass is green or the sky is blue, right? It's obvious to everybody, and it doesn't give them any advantage for us to believe the sky is purple and grass is red. So it's the fundamental core foundational beliefs in how our society, culture, and world are working that they're lying about, and that gives them a big advantage over us. Mainly, it causes us to give our power away to them. That's the fundamental goal. Powerful quote.
I suppose we basically contend that the media, tells you the truth to make themselves seem credible. Partially, they tell you a bunch of truths, so you're like, well, that's true. But they tell you enough lies and enough big lies to lead you toward a life of misery. That's right. I would say a life of judgment against the other. They divide you, and to live in fear and judgment, and to not know yourself.
Yep, all of the above. More importantly than anything is they lie by omission. So a story, an event may happen, and 80% of the event doesn't fit their narrative. So if it doesn't fit their narrative, they just don't talk about it. They'll only talk about the 10% that does, right? Or doesn't fit any narrative, or doesn't go against their narrative. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And furthermore, please don't believe or imagine that we are like against left-wing media and for right-wing media, or for right-wing media, or the opposite of what I just said, right? Like, it's the media. It's two sides of the same coin.
Yep. 100%. Want me to poke at law here a little bit?
Oh, definitely.
This is something
Brad is a law expert, as you will come to see, but not in the traditional way that you expect. But
yeah,
you will come to see him as a law expert. Trust me.
Not a legal expert, but a law expert.
Not illegal.
Effectively, the way I like to say this is that the legal system, or the liege lord system, that's what the word legal comes from, is an overlay on top of law. And the trickery and deception, semantic deceit, and multi-definition word use is so replete with deception, mind-boggling. It could probably take 10 podcasts to even cover 5 or 10% of what I've learned to this point. But suffice it to say, the entire legal system was not created to protect us. It was created to protect the people who are in control of this world.
Right. And it is extremely hilarious to listen to people on the right and left debate whether something is illegal or is legal, whether it should be legal or should not be legal, or whether something's constitutional or not constitutional. And all they're arguing is whether this aligns with the system of the king, of the liege, the controllers, or not.
That's right.
It's reality, just, it's a total trap.
The reality of the matter is that laws are immutable and universal. That's what a law is, right? Ironically, most people want to run to the gravity, which is technically it is a law, but it isn't caused by a thing called gravity. But that's a podcast for another day. But that's a law, right? Like what goes up must come down. That's a law. And, you shouldn't hurt other people. That's a law. You shouldn't injure other people. That's a law, right? And if you do, you're gonna have blowback no matter what. And it's funny. I argue with people all the time about I think there are, I forget the number. I think there are like 87 million legal statutory laws on the books, and we don't need one of them. Right? Not a one. You can throw them all out the door. They are completely unnecessary. We as people understand when someone has done wrong to somebody else. We don't need anybody to write it down. And that's the essence of this trickery that's going on. But again, big conversation for, obviously multiple podcasts. We could delve deeper into these ideas. We've been unlawfully converted. That's the short version. We were unlawfully converted into something we're not, and we unwittingly play the role of something we're not. It's ingenious how they did it.
Oh, it's maybe the most grand deception of all.
It's unbelievably ingenious. Like, you got to hand it to them. It is brilliant what they did. So how about
So
health?
health. We have a sentence here. Almost no health modality available to us can correctly identify the cause of disease. Right? You go to the doctor. Oh, they can tell you. They can diagnose you. Oh, you've got this. You got these symptoms. Says here in my textbook here. Plus, I remember from medical school that these symptoms are associated with this disease. All right, that's the disease. Well, what's the cure? What's the cure for that? Well, we got a bunch of pills. All right. Well, what's the cause? I challenge anyone to ask their doctor, what is precisely, point to it exactly in reality, concretely, what is the cause of my disease? You're not going to get a proper answer. Oh, well, it could be genes, could be diet, could be stress. Yeah, but these are large scale abstractions that indicate no underlying concrete knowledge of reality. All right. So this whole health thing is just a big deception, right?
Massive. Yep.
So without knowing the cause of something, how can you know the cure? Furthermore, we all know that these big pharmaceutical drugs are not cures. Okay. So this whole thing is, I don't know whether the purpose is to make us sick, or whether the purpose is to just hog the industry and hog the money and just be the experts or something. But this whole thing is not working. You just look at disease rates in the past century, they're up, 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 up in every single disease. So there are massive deceptions in this entire establishment.
Right. The genius that they pulled off here is that you can't prove or verify any of their claims, so you can't disprove or not verify their claims, which is the irony of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's which makes this trickier. They say prove that my genes didn't cause my lung cancer. I can't do it. I cannot prove because nobody has yet to prove that your genes did cause your lung cancer. So they get away with this unverifiable falsehood telling, and when you call them on it, they flip the table on you and say, "You prove I'm wrong." And this happens every day in circles that I run in.
Mm-hmm.
Truly maddening.
Oh yeah, anyone with health issues is going to love this podcast. You're you're going to find the answers in this podcast. I promise you. You're going to find the answers here. Brad, do you want to talk about government?
Gubernmentes, the Latin, mind control. People love to snap back on this one and say, well, Latin could also mean this and that, but no, that's what it means. And it's right there on our face. And really the government is the feudal system. And, we'll do a lot of this in our law series, but the government that we set up, Jefferson and Adams and Franklin, that set up 250 years ago here in America, is not even close to being what we have today. Two different things. Flip the pyramid. The law maxim is he who creates controls. Well, man created government. Government created laws, statutes, and somehow or another, they got it to the point where we have to follow their statutes. This is how it is all over the world. And it wasn't meant to be that way. So it shows you how everything was inverted over these last 200, 150 years to be the exact opposite of what the intention was, certainly at the founding of the United States, which does stand alone in a lot of ways when it comes to how we can flip this back on them. And it'll be citizens of the United States that'll probably have to start this ball rolling. Australia, not quite the same. UK, Canada, etc. They don't have quite as much latitude as we do here in America. So we're going to flip it around. It's going to happen. It's just a question of who, how, and when at this point. But the essence of all this is that our governments were turned into corporations, and their singular intention really is to suppress and enslave the populace, take their power away. That's what they do, every one of them.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's going to argue with that, if they're going to seriously come to us and contend that the government is kind of like having our best interests in mind and that they go to work and do a great job, or I would just say you can't possibly be serious. You can't.
Well, we look forward to that feedback, and maybe that'll spawn new podcasts. Right?
Right.
It's a big idea. It's hard to come to grips with for many people.
So do you want to close out this section for going forward, and then we'll hit on the conclusion?
Yeah, so really this little section here we talked about is that we contend and strongly believe that all our major institutions are corrupted at the core, at the highest levels. Doesn't mean everybody that works at all our institutions are corrupted, of course. Does not mean that at all. It means the top and the essence and the foundation of them has been corrupted. And of course, this is in institutions where there is some form of power, money, control involved that can be used to wield it against the masses. So we speak of major institutions, obviously, not minor local projects. For instance, charities that are small, like a food bank in a city or something. That's not what we're talking about. Big ones. So if you stick with us, keep coming back, and listening, we will address each one of these in depth, piece by piece, and as many podcasts as it takes to help others see this. Because when enough of us see this, that's the end of this institutional corruption. But right now, it's being held up by too many people that don't see it. That's what we hope to chip away at.
Right. And just for you personally on your own journey, just to reiterate what we said earlier, as you discard the erroneous beliefs that are fed to us by these deceptions, you open the way to self-discovery and all the benefits that brings.
100%. That's what happens with very little effort on your own. The only effort required is to open to the possibility that these institutions we have in place today are corrupt to the core.
Mm-hmm. So we're about to reach the end of this podcast. We want to just finalize some things. I'm going to state what the goals of this podcast are. I'm going to just simply state them, and Brad, if you like, you can go into some more detail. 1, to help more people along this journey of self-discovery. 2, collective transformation to make the world a better place. 3, humanity's discardment of erroneous ideas that keep us contracted, dissatisfied, and unhappy. 4, to provide a nourishing, expansive thought stream that rejuvenates, rebalances, and helps people out of the daily grind into something much better.
Yeah, that's I love all those. And I just, the thought that as you read through those, the thought that hit me was, a lot of people are afraid they're crazy, or their family, friends, coworkers are going to think they're crazy for going in this direction. And it's anything but crazy. So hopefully this will be a refuge that people can come to and realize that there are many other people that are coming to these conclusions and realizing these things. And the more of us, the more of a community there is, the more empowered and emboldened we feel to not only hold on to these new ideas, but to spread and share them as well.
Right. So we really feel like, this podcast is going to be the most valuable podcast you can listen to. We didn't make this to just say, just to be a choice that you can make to listen to these two people say, their comments on particular, topics. We made this to literally be so educational and so interesting and insightful that it's the fastest and most enjoyable path to your liberation and self-discovery. So right here, you're going to find out all the lies we've been taught. And as you shred those lies, you're going to release pains, you're going to release illnesses, stresses, all these difficulties that have just plagued your life and made your life worse for years or decades, and you'll stumble upon or notice or discover truths and epiphanies that really help you live a happier, calmer, clearer, and more purposeful life. This is not just for us to just entertain, where we want to really give you the most valuable information that you can get in the entire world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to, I saw this, all the lies. I don't think you and I or anybody has discovered all the lies yet, but we're certainly going to share as many as we have discovered.
Yeah, good point.
I'll be the first to
Sorry
admit,
for that exaggeration.
That's all good. I just wanted to point that out, that hopefully, I'm hoping really that, we get a decent subscriber base, and we discover and resolve some lies that we don't know about yet together. I really hope our listeners help us. Or if we think we've gotten to the bottom of one, that somebody points us in the direction. This is how I've learned everything I've learned, is I've, just little by little chipped away at, these lies, and saying, I'll go down, path X for a while, and then someone will pop up and, that's not quite right. Check this path out. And the next thing you know, I'm heading down path Y. For the last 2 weeks, I was thinking path X is probably the answer, but no, it's actually path Y. Right. So I look forward to the, people listening to help us and point us in the right direction. If we make a mistake, or if they think we're wrong, to point that out, and I'll happily correct myself in a heartbeat. I know Matt will too. If we're wrong about something, we're the first ones to admit it, and it just helps everybody get wiser and get further down the rabbit hole and out the other side, which is where we want to be, in that self-discovery space of bliss. So,
and I suppose I'd even correct. I suppose what I intended to say was not that we're going to be the ones that tell you what the lies are and tell you what the truths are, but like we'll give you the fuel toward your liberation and self-discovery. And as you go on that path, you will find out all the lies, whether they come from us or just another source, or you discover them yourself. You're going to get them, and you're going to find out the truths as well.
Each of us has our curiosity is unique, right? So there will be people that will dig deeper and find things, further than we've gone, which I look forward to. And I look forward, like I said, I look forward to those people becoming friends and community members, so that we're just basically feeding each other truths, and we're not spending our time wallowing in deceptions like so many other podcasts out there are. They may be telling 30% truth, 50% truths, or and I mean by truths, I mean they may be past some of the lies that we've been indoctrinated into and speaking on those lines. But then the other half of their broadcast is they're reasserting things that just aren't true. So we hope to not do that, and we hope that our listeners will correct us when we do. I look forward to it. That's how we learn.
And if you want to learn more from us, we got a couple of options in addition to this is the podcast. So if you look over the site, you're going to find a ton of cool courses. We got courses on specifically on self-discovery, courses on recovering from pain, course on weight loss, and we got a ton of other courses being created. So just browse through the site, and you're going to find great stuff. Brad, did you want to mention about the deeper learning option?
Well, yeah. So 2 things on the courses, right? These are the types of things that take time, right? So we didn't probably mention this in the broadcast up to now, but one of the things that I mentioned earlier was that don't believe us or disbelieve us, put us in the I don't know category. When we talk about some of these sea change ideas that we're talking about here, right? So these are major paradigm shifts, right? Foundational shifts. You can't arrive at them after an hour or a day or a week or even a month. It takes time. And that's what the courses are really for, is slowly, gently moving you through to this new set of ideas. And that's what we'll also do. We're going to set up, we don't have it just yet, but we'll have it soon, a Patreon or Subscribe Star for people who want to go a little bit deeper. And I'm mainly going to be speaking of this deeper into the self-discovery / spiritual type of topics that maybe I feel majority of people aren't interested in hearing, or might find it a little uncomfortable or difficult. But for those who want to take that deeper dive, we're going to offer. Our plan is to offer at least once a month a subscribe star discussion where we'll take a topic into much deeper areas for those that are interested. So that's the plan right now. It may change.
Well, sounds great to me.
Feels good to me.
Okay.
So,
well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Is there anything final you want to say, bud?
No, thanks for listening. I think we squeezed it into an hour. By the way, we plan to keep all of our podcasts to under an hour, so that's the goal. So we don't ramble on forever, and we certainly look forward to all of you coming back. I got a doozy already started to be outlined and planned for our second podcast, which will be our first one that's specific to a topic and specific content.
Sounds great. Okay, perfect. Well, again, it's all good, man. I'm just looking forward to it. We're gonna share so much awesome content. You're really gonna have your mind blown here on the Mind Blown Zone.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Brad. See you later, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.